Another specific requirement that broadcast radio and television stations have takes place during election cycles. Section 315 of the 1934 Communication Act requires radio stations and TV stations to provide equal opportunities and response time for qualified political candidates during elections. So, for instance, if a radio station provides time for one candidate, say 20 minutes to present his or her own views, then the station is obligated to provide equal time to other candidates for that particular political office. Now, there are a lot of exceptions to this provision. It does not apply to a station's news broadcasts. So let's say that Channel 30's Eyewitness News provides a story about one particular political candidate. If it takes place during that broadcast, it doesn't have to then provide comparable time for all of the other candidates. Now, there are also a number of other exemptions where Section 315 doesn't apply, such as during televised debates, so that a station can hold a debate and just have the two top candidates and then omit or exclude all of the lesser-known candidates. So all of these exceptions and exemptions really call into question just how effective this Section 315 is in terms of making certain that television and radio stations provide opportunities for all candidates for a particular office. Now, supporters of this law argue that it's a good thing because it has provided some opportunities for lesser-known candidates to get exposure. But as I've said, there are increasingly a lot of ways for candidates and news organizations to get around the provisions of this Section 315. And I think it also raises some broader questions about, what policies should we adopt as a society to make certain that all candidates for a particular political office are represented in our media. I mean, as we've talked about earlier on in this class, our political system is increasingly dominated by wealthy corporate interests, that it takes a lot of money to buy airtime on TV stations and radio stations to air political ads. So does that then exclude candidates that don't have that financial backing or wealth? Section 315 was intended to serve the interests of our society by making certain that there were opportunities for third-party candidates, candidates that don't have a lot of money or financial backing. But it does raise a question about whether or not our system of regulation truly provides these opportunities for all candidates to have their say. Another government policy that radio and television stations in the U.S. were required to follow was called the Fairness Doctrine. This was a policy that required radio and TV stations to address controversial issues in their programming. The stations had to figure out what were important issues that were of concern to their local communities, and then to provide some attention to those controversial issues in their programming. The second part of the Fairness Doctrine required broadcasters to present different points of view on these controversial issues. So, for instance, if abortion was a controversial issue in Hartford, radio or TV stations would have to address the issue of abortion in some programming, and then present a variety of different points of view on that topic. So you might have some representatives from religious groups that are opposed to abortion, a representative from Planned Parenthood that is pro-choice, and the programming might feature some dialogue and debate among the various people represented on the panel. Now, this policy had been in force until 1987, when it was discontinued by the Federal Communications Commission that had adopted a much more deregulatory philosophy. So it had been in the midst of doing away with this type of public interest regulation. Now, broadcasters did not like the Fairness Doctrine because they argued that it really imposed a costly burden on them. They had to, do all this survey research to figure out what are controversial issues in their cities. They had to devote a lot of expensive program time to addressing these controversial issues and so on. However, advocates of the Fairness Doctrine argued that this doctrine went to the heart of the obligations of radio and TV stations, that these broadcast media outlets had an obligation to serve their local communities, and one way of doing that was to address important issues of concern to people in these communities and to foster a vigorous debate and dialogue about these topics. That said, after the Fairness Doctrine was abolished, television and radio stations no longer had any obligation to cover controversial issues or to present differing points of views on those issues. One result of this is that you had the growth of radio stations in particular that were dominated by one particular political perspective. So we've had the proliferation of radio stations with talk radio formats, where a station will feature a lineup of lots of very politically conservative hosts like Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh. And there is no obligation by that radio station to address different points of view that might challenge what Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck has to say. So I guess a question for us is, do we still need the Fairness Doctrine? Is it desirable to require stations to present different points of view on controversial issues? Or do we today have a sufficient diversity of media outlets that this is no longer necessary? From time to time, government leaders will raise the question about whether or not we should reinstate the Fairness Doctrine. What do you think about that? Should we have a policy like the Fairness Doctrine today?